everybody, come on in. Thought we'd try something a little bit different today and sort of run through the holler emails that we put out and give sort of a video breakdown of what's in them in case you're not subscribing yet. If you aren't, go to tnholler.com is where you can subscribe and support and chip in. We have hollers across the state, and that's all thanks to your support. We also have a sponsor in Elisa Parker. If you're buying or selling a home in Tennessee, check her out. She supports us. Supporting her supports us. So make sure you do that. But today I just wanted to do something a little different and kind of go through this email that we send out twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays and go through what's in it and watch a little of the videos and just talk about some of the stories that are out there. If you guys have any thoughts on them, I thought it might be cool just to do that. The first thing that we talked about at the top of the email is what's going on in Congress with Biden's agenda. We have a little breakdown of that at the top of the emails. Basically, progressives are essentially holding the line for Biden's agenda. They're digging in. This is an agenda that's supported by most of the people, which the numbers show that independent voters and Democrats support Biden's agenda. So progressives are sort of on the right side of this, and they know it, and that's why they're flexing their power. We've seen AOC post about how their power is coming from the people. And so that's at the top of our email here today. If you subscribe to our emails, you'll see we have a little sort of breakdown of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the music so we can watch a video. This is Marsha Blackburn. She was fear-mongering on Fox News because it's all she really knows how to do. And it's just outrageous to see how insane she gets about this stuff. She talks about how, intense the deal is, how it's taking over everybody's lives and all that. So I'm looking for the video right now, but basically, Marsha Blackburn, all she does is call everything socialism and say they want to run your life from the cradle to the grave because, they never want to talk about the specifics of what's going on with this stuff. They only want to talk about the top line number, the $3.5 trillion number, which is a decade-long number, and scare people.
Maria, we know that the Build Back Better agenda has become the Biden Build Back Broke agenda. And
Marsha she comes up with these little Marsha-isms like Build Back Broke. She's so proud of herself with that.
The American people have figured out that what they're trying to do is institutionalize socialism. They're trying
institutionalize socialism. What does that even mean? It's important to keep in mind that right now in Tennessee, Republicans are extremely proud of this deal that they just landed, bringing Ford to build electric cars in Memphis to invest $5.6 billion. And Governor Lee is calling for a special session to give them $500 million in government subsidies. So that's not socialism, yet somehow this is institutionalized socialism when Biden's trying to do basically the same thing at the federal level.
Trying to do a takeover of the country in one vote. They want government control of your kids. They want to look at your
government control of your kids. Like, it's amazing the things that come out of her mouth just without even hesitation. She doesn't even blink when she says this nonsense. Government control of your kids. Like, what is she like? First of all, what are you even, because the government would send people money to help take care of their kids or give people time to spend with their kids with paid leave, or, universal pre-K, which would take a load off of a lot of people. That's not government control of your kids. That's government support for your kids. So basically anything Marsha says is the opposite of what's actually happening.
Bank account for every transaction over $600. Anything that you do on Venmo and PayPal, they want a part of that transaction.
I mean, I don't even know where that comes from, but no, people are being taxed who make over $400,000 a year, corporations and the wealthy. That's who's being taxed. So when they go to bat for their donors like this, the way that they do it is by acting as though they're going to bat for regular people, but really it's just a shield that they're using regular people as a shield for their donors.
They want government control of health care.
It's not government control of healthcare. It's government acting as the insurer by expanding Medicare. This isn't even Medicare for all, which would be great, but that's not what this is. This is just expanding Medicare to cover vision and dental for older people, which is something that we absolutely should do. And, Marsha can't stand when anything helps regular people.
They want to demoralize the military, close the churches.
Demoralize the military, close the churches. I mean, these are just lies. She's just a liar. And she says these things, they roll off of her tongue so casually. It's fascinating.
Destroy your faith in the American system.
Destroy your faith in the American system. Nothing has destroyed people's faith in the American system more than the lie that Trump actually won this election, a lie that Marsha tells regularly.
And then here they're going to come with the socialist program to run your life from cradle to grave, daylight to dark.
And she, run your life from cradle to grave, daylight to dark. Like, it's wild that anybody takes this woman seriously about anything, and I understand disagreeing with these policies, but I don't understand why anybody takes this woman seriously. I mean, she is outrageous on every level. She's a horror, and she's a liar. At the end of the day, she's just a liar. So that's Marsha lying to people about this thing. Kim Walker, I'm seeing you guys out there. Appreciate you guys checking it out. Just to bring you back up to speed, I'm just kind of going through this email that we send out, our holler email that we send out twice weekly on Tuesdays and Fridays if we can. I think that's my buddy Ashley talking about the jobs in Memphis. And, I do think that the jobs in Memphis are a good thing. And I'm not saying necessarily that, we should be against government incentives, but I am saying that to give government incentives at the state level while calling it socialism at the federal level is completely disingenuous. And, it's amazing. So our email last week called it the Green New Hypocrisy. This is Marsha in the AP. The AP picked up on the hypocrisy also. They politely said, green energy takes hold in unlikely places with the Ford project, which was a nice way of putting it. And then they talked about her hypocrisy. They said, Tennessee Republican Marsha Blackburn said the project will transform the landscape of West Tennessee. Okay. But then they went on to say last month, in explaining her vote against the infrastructure plan, she said the legislation amounted to a gateway to socialism. A lot of Green New Deal in there. She said Tennesseans don't want the Green New Deal. Well, there's really no justifying calling the federal programs socialism, and then when it helps Tennessee in Memphis, suddenly we're transforming Tennessee in a way that's positive. So the hypocrisy was noted by the AP. This is Lee's proclamation calling for the special session that was in our email last week. And there's going to be a separate special session, maybe, that's being called for by state legislators in the House and the Senate, because they know that if they have a special session about the Ford incentives and they don't talk about COVID, their extremists are going to freak out. So House Republicans are now saying, oh, we need to have our own special session because, they need to appease the extremists. And let's talk about those extremists for a second. Came out last week that we've had the most school closures in the entire country. We lead the way when it comes to school closures. And that's thanks to the policies of Governor Lee. And the extremists that they're pandering to by calling this separate special session, they've been particularly loud over in Knoxville. The Knoxville extremists have really been on one lately. And this was them at Farragut. They're, I think, even today, still at Farragut, bothering kids. This was one of their signs that said, "Good little sheep wear masks." So they're really harassing kids on their way into school. That's something that they think is an appropriate, okay thing to do in the wake of the mask mandate that a federal judge ruled was constitutional, and Governor Lee is now fighting it, and so are Knox schools. They actually lied to us on the phone last week saying they weren't going to fight it, and then they forgot to hang up. And while we were recording, they forgot to hang up, and they were commiserating about basically how they were pulling one over on us and the rest of the state. And then a couple of days later, they filed for a laundry list of exemptions. But it's important to remember that less than 1% of Knox County school students are defying the mask requirements. So these are extremists. They're in the minority. There may be people who agree with them, but they're going along with the mask requirements because, it's a judge ordered it. And frankly, it's the right thing to do. So yes, I agree, Elizabeth. It's disgusting. And I can see your comments. So appreciate you guys saying this. Jay's talking about Marsha. He says lying is who she is. Couldn't agree more. She lies all day long. Ashley says we got the plants because we're paying to play with tax dollars. That's true. And I come from a perspective of, I made a movie. My former life, I used to make movies and stuff, and made a movie in Puerto Rico. And the only reason we went to Puerto Rico is because Puerto Rico gave us a tax incentive to go there. So I do believe that deployed the right way, tax incentives can work and create jobs and, bring business, but it has to be deployed the right way. There's examples like Foxconn in Wisconsin. That was a complete boondoggle that cost the citizens a lot of money and didn't amount to anything. So I'm going back and forth here a little bit, feeling it out. But again, just so everybody knows what we're doing, I'm just kind of going through our email that we send out twice a week that you can subscribe to at tnholler.com. It's also, there's a link to it on our Twitter feed, and you'll get our email roundup of what's going on in Tennessee. And I'm also just sort of running through it here. Knoxville, there's this group called the Knoxville something Parents Against Mandates or something. And that's where a lot of this nonsense is going on. They made it private recently, I think, because we kept posting what they were posting. This is one of their posts. Any parents of Jewish descent, our children are being held in concentration camps. This is what they're saying because their kids are being separated for not wearing masks at the schools because it defeats the purpose of having kids in masks next to kids without masks. And they're equating it with concentration camps, which is obviously completely absurd and offensive. My grandparents survived Auschwitz, and this is really gross. We did them a favor of blacking out their name. But if you're comparing anything to concentration camps or the Holocaust, you deserve to be shamed. So Kim Walker says we need to get rid of right to work states. Yes, I agree with you. I'm definitely pro-union. I think unions in the middle class go hand in hand. The numbers don't lie. It's looking like the Ford plant is going to be a union plant. So that will be good. And it's always amazing to see how Republicans, stand up for the corporations that are coming in, and they're actually very anti-union. Speaking of Knoxville, a little bit more about that. Teachers are dying. Teacher died over there. So while they rail against these mandates and keeping people safe and call for special sessions to basically do away with anything that we're doing to mitigate the spread, teachers are dying. Clarksville actually lost 4 public school employees last month. 4 public school employees, including a couple teachers, bus driver, died in Clarksville, a couple in the same school just last month. So people are dying. Like, this is happening. These are younger people that are dying from this stuff. And meanwhile, Governor Lee is going around maskless, even in places where people are wearing masks. So he went to visit a school, Haywood High, getting right in the faces of these kids who are wearing masks. He's right in his face. And they're all wearing masks and he's not. So this guy has a lot of blood on his hands. He's truly an embarrassment and has failed to lead at every level. Vaccinations are starting to slow. We're at like 48% vaccinated in Tennessee, and first doses are declining. Most of the deaths, like 90%, are unvaccinated people now. So it's very much an unvaccinated pandemic. Rural Americans are dying at twice the rate of urban Americans. So that's a link that you'll find in our email today. I'm just, again, kind of going through our email. You would see all this stuff. The links are in there. And rural Americans are dying at twice the rate, and they're losing staff. And it's important to remember also that Tennessee is number one in rural hospital closures per capita, in large part because we have failed to expand Medicaid here in Tennessee strictly for political reasons. We lose about $1.7 billion every single year that we don't expand Medicaid. And the only reason that it didn't happen is political reasons, is because they're still mad that Obama was ever president, ever existed. There's no reason not to expand Medicaid at this point. So that's something that we still need to do. And as they fight against vaccines, it's important to remember that vaccine mandates do work. This is an article that's in our email today. Hundreds of United Airlines staff handed in their vaccination proof after the company threatened to fire them. There are 60,000 United Airlines workers. About 600 refused to get the vaccine. And then when they threatened to fire them, half of those turned in their vaccination proof. So that's 300 left out of 60,000, which is about 0.5%. So vaccine mandates are working. And frankly, if you're somebody that's refusing to get the vaccine right now, it seems pretty reasonable that you no longer work for the company. And, it seems like we're sort of weeding out a lot of people that way. And it might not be such a bad thing. That might not be such a bad thing. Another thing that happened this weekend that we have some footage of here is there were the abortion rallies. People turned out all across the country, especially in Tennessee. And that was really great to see. It was women standing up all over the place to speak out against this war on women that's been going on, especially here in Tennessee, but Texas has taken the lead recently. There were rallies all across Tennessee. This was some footage from Knoxville where they were chanting, "We won't go back." We won't go back. We won't go back. We won't go back. And of course, what they mean is we're not going back in time to a time when abortion was illegal, when women were forced to get it in illegal, dangerous ways, and women would die because of that. This is very much a life or death situation. And that's the place that Republicans want us to take us back to. I mean, all you need to know is that there's no exception for rape to understand that this is really about controlling women's bodies. And if they were really pro-life, they would want to expand Medicaid. They would want to do something about gun violence. They would want to help families with universal pre-K, because most of the time the decision is made for financial reasons. That's like the number one reason that women get abortions. So if we really want to do something about the abortions, we want to make it unnecessary, not illegal. That was a quote that I heard recently that I thought was good, was that Republicans want to make abortion illegal. Democrats want to make it unnecessary. And that, I think, is a really important distinction. And abortion is healthcare. So that's something that I think that we need to keep saying out loud, especially here in our state. We're probably going to see these draconian laws here pretty soon now that they passed in Texas. And obviously, Supreme Court is going to take them up. Here's some more shots of the turnout this weekend. Pretty awesome. And then it's important to realize that, this is actually having an impact right now. Doctors are saying in Texas that, there are conditions where fetuses don't have a brain that they can detect early. And now in Texas, women are being forced to carry, or babies don't have a brain, or whatever age it's at, they're being forced to carry those babies to term now in Texas. So it's already happening. It's already having an impact. It's already having a very real impact on women there. And a lot of the legislators that are pushing these bills are funded by corporations that donate to them. And so the rally in Nashville marched right to the AT&T building, which is one of the biggest donors to these legislators. And they had a truck saying, AT&T, how much are our lives worth? They were wearing a dirty money cleanup crew shirts. And, I think these, I don't want to say gimmicks, but these stunts are really useful. And, anything that gets more eyeballs and brings attention is useful. I think people are getting really good at that stuff now, and it's great to see. And get their vaccines if they're pro-life. Yes, Elizabeth's right about that. Absolutely. So that's another thing that happened this weekend. There's more stuff about that in our in our email today, which is what we're doing today. We're going through our email and talking about that. Speaking of the vaccines, a couple other videos to share. There was a march in New York City, and anti-vax, anti-maskers came across a COVID testing site, and this is what they did to it. In front of their kids. You see their kids there. Tore it down. And then you might be wondering, hey, well, where are the police, right? Where are the police? Well, they're right there. The police are right there while this is happening. You'll see them in a second. He comes in and says, hey, stop, keep going. Doesn't do anything to him. And then it's not just him. There's like 5 cops there. They all walk in the frame right now. And they don't do anything to these people. Why? Why are they not doing anything to these people? Look, that woman in the Yankee sweatshirt is like, are you going to do something? And they're like, no, not going to do anything. We'll help you put your tent back up, but that's about it. And then they help them put their tent back up. No arrests. Nobody gets in trouble. Sure, just trash a COVID testing site. No problem. No problem whatsoever. Go ahead. Trash the testing site. Anyway, these are the people that we're dealing with on some level. We have seen more. They're allowed to do that. Yeah, they're allowed to do that. Cops are there to make sure our side doesn't fight back. Probably true. Yes, I see Carlos saying hello. Carlos, how are you, sir? Just to let everybody know, we're going through our Holler email that we send out on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can subscribe to that at tandholler.com. And basically what we're doing is walking through what's in it today so that you get a sense of it. Speaking of, the people that were around and getting away with stuff, SNL had an incredible sketch. I'm not going to show it because I don't think I can copyright wise, about school board meetings and the behavior there that felt like it was about Williamson County or Tennessee in general, which was pretty amazing. But yeah, I just thought that was shocking to see them dumping that COVID testing site and getting away with it. The cops just letting it happen. Just absolutely wild, completely ridiculous. There was a show called Breakfast Club, which is a really popular radio show in New York. And they did a segment on what they call the donkey of the day. And they did it on the chair of the Williamson County Moms for Liberty, Robin Steenman, who, was somebody that helped bring a lot of the people that it seemed like SNL was spoofing. And so he did a donkey of the day about her. And they showed this clip of Robin Steenman that I hadn't actually seen, where CNN talks to her about basically their attack on the truth in our schools, not wanting real race to be taught in our schools, and essentially black and white kids to be taught that, yeah, back in the day, black people were killed for being black. And so she says, yeah, we shouldn't teach that. And he asked her when we should teach that, and she gets stumped. And I just thought this clip was really telling.
And then asked if he would be killed back then because he has brown skin. I mean, he's judging George Washington not by any of what about being the founder of our country.
So when do we tell the kid that in fact, he may have been killed back then because of the color of his skin.
Awkward.
I'm not sure that's what you teach, that you would have been killed for the color of your skin.
Okay, so right there, first of all, you can just watch Robin's brain process that, oh, right, you could be killed for the color of your skin. Like, yeah, that was a real thing. And then she admits and gives the game away when she says, I'm not sure that's what you teach. So she's telling us that she doesn't want the truth taught in our classrooms, and Robin, her kids no longer are in school in Williamson County Public Schools. She pulled them out. And basically, she's against Ruby Bridges and all of these things that make her white child uncomfortable. Obviously not putting much thought into what it does to Black kids to, not have their truth taught in our schools. And this is real. This is what happened. This is our history. This is what should be taught. And for her to say, I'm not sure that should be taught, I mean, that's at least honest. They have since tried to debunk, quote unquote, this and like play other parts of the interview and say that's not the right context, but you can see the context for yourself. It's pretty clear. And, they have the option to pull their kids out to homeschool, but they're attacking the truth that all of our kids learn. And they're putting all of our kids, they're trying to keep all of our kids ignorant. My kids go to school in Williamson County, and, I consider this basically an attack on the truth in our schools about my kids. And so, yeah, I take exception to this. And, it's not personal. I've come to know Robin a little bit on a personal level. I don't, have hate in my heart for her, but I really have a problem with what she's doing. And I think it's deserved of ridicule. And so it was nice to see Charlemagne talk about that.
Absolutely be embarrassed. We cannot heal what we don't reveal. And concealing the reality of this country is not going to make white supremacy or systemic racism go away. It's literally like lying to your doctor. You can't go to your doctor and tell them your head hurts if it's really your stomach, okay? The logic of that ain't logical. The doctor can't even help you because he or she is looking in the wrong places, looking at...
So true. It's like lying to your doctor. How can we as a country heal if we don't talk about what the real problem is? So, and there, I have friends in Williamson County who are, white parents of adopted Black children their kids are young and coming across racism already, probably learned at home. And so, it may be that she thinks her kids are too young to learn this stuff, but Black kids don't get the option of not dealing with this stuff. So it's important that we give some context early, and that's really important. Carlos says progressives are attacking folks in restrooms. Carlos, try to make sense if you're going to come on here and troll us, man. This is ridiculous. That's one of your worst comments on here. Like, usually you at least have something of substance to say. That's just weak. Of course, was about TN school board meetings. Kim Walker says, let's be clear, her ignorance made her uncomfortable. Yes, I agree. Her ignorance is what made her uncomfortable. And I really have a problem with her trying to keep our kids ignorant, which is what's going on. You're saying, what would you say? Oh, Kristen Sinema was attacked. I think they went in there and yelled at her or something. She was not attacked physically. So, try to at least be honest in what you're saying. And, maybe restrooms are off limits, but I, in general, don't have a problem with public officials being talked to in public places. And frankly, I do it myself. I go up to the Capitol and do it myself. So, it may go too far, but if you have more of a problem with Kirsten Sinema being talked to in a bathroom than you do with those anti-maskers physically throwing a COVID site on the ground, it might be time to rethink some things, Carlos. And yes, Christine says, nobody attacked her. They asked things she didn't want to hear. But as always, Carlos, thank you for following the holler and joining us here. A couple more things that I want to show you guys. I appreciate you showing up here. This was an interesting clip and again, we're going through stuff that is in our email today. So tnholler.com is where you can subscribe. This is our daily holler. Do this for a couple more minutes, but that's where you can subscribe and check it out. And if you're enjoying this, let me know. Both are wrong. I mean, it may be wrong to go into the bathroom with somebody, but it's not wrong to, go after somebody in a public place with words and thoughts and tell them how you feel, especially someone like Cinema who's hiding from people and leaving DC when she shouldn't be. So, I don't really have any problem with ridicule. And if you're going to be a public official, you need to be able to take the heat. Sorry. Here's a exchange with Governor Justice of West Virginia, who, and by the way, no, let's show this first because we're talking about Cinema. This was Manchin in his yacht. I wanted to show this last week, but Facebook kicked us off for 24 hours for no reason. This is Manchin on his yacht, looking down at people in kayaks, trying to tell them he's on their side as he blocks the things that they want.
Let me talk if you can. Where are y'all from? Anybody from West Virginia?
Yes.
West Virginia?
We have a lot of West Virginians.
I mean, he's on his yacht looking down at kayakers, talking about why he's blocking a bill that taxes the wealthy to help regular people. You really can't make this stuff up. I know we're a little late on this and you've probably seen it already, but I'm just so fascinated by this. I hope this moment is in history books.
God bless you all. But gang, we're working hard. We really are. We're going to continue to in good faith. We want to get a good bill. It's a balanced bill. It's well done. And I know it won't be enough for some. It'll be too much for others. In West Virginia, West Virginia is a little bit different than you.
The thing to remember is 70% of West Virginians want to tax the wealthy to help regular people. And West Virginia is a very poor place. So, this guy on his yacht, and there's a laundry list of things that have gone on with the Manchin family. His daughter ran a company that was price gouging with insulin and set it up with his wife that schools were required to buy multiple doses. Like, just this is a corrupt family. And, they try to come at this as though Manchin and Cinema are doing this for good faith reasons. But in reality, this is legalized corruption. They're taking money from corporations. They're helping themselves. And, corruption is legal in America. It's really important to understand that.
There's a lot of poverty. What are you going to do for the poor in West Virginia?
We're going to be working everything we can to create good opportunities.
And we need to tax the rich.
Well, I agree with that. I definitely agree.
Oh, I agree with that.
The thing we should be doing is fixing the tax code so everybody pays their fair share.
It's kind of sociopathic the way he's like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm on your side. I'm fighting for you. He genuinely seems to feel that way.
We should be also negotiating for lower drug prices. We should be doing all these things. I agree with you 1,000%.
I agree with you 1,000%. Anyway, you've probably seen that video by now. I'm just so fascinated by that moment. It's really a wild moment. And yes, it's because he's taking kickbacks from Big Pharma. No moderates allowed in the Democratic Party, Carlos. I thought you were all inclusive. There's a lot of moderates in the Democratic Party. So I don't know what you're talking about. But at this moment, they are out of step. And let's talk about that word for a second. They're out of step with the majority of the American people, the president, the majority of their party. That's not moderate. They are the extreme wing of the Democratic Party right now. Just because they're siding with Republicans, that doesn't make you centrist. That's not moderate. So I take exception to that terminology. I think if you're out of step with most people and most of your party and your president, you don't get to claim moderate. That's extremist. If there were 9 progressives or 2 progressive senators that were doing this, they would not be called moderates. They would be called radicals and, oh my goodness, holding the party hostage. Tax the rich and they'll raise prices and hurt the poor. Carlos, you are doing, I hope you're rich, Carlos. Are you rich? Maybe you're rich because you are parroting all of the rich talking points. This is what they want you to think. That, tax the rich and your hamburgers will cost $15. Well, that's not how it is in other places. And so, no, that is not what's going to happen. We have Gilded Age levels of inequality, and we need to do something about it. Even Manchin saying we need to do something about it. Even Biden saying we need to do something about it. This is our opportunity to have things like universal pre-K, paid leave, HBCU funding, fund electric preparation for our clean energy future. And you're parroting these talking points because you're so, I want to say brainwashed. I'm going to try to do you a favor and not say that, but you have their talking points so internalized that you are helping to stand in the way of this stuff. So you're not right about that. If we tax the rich, they don't just raise the prices. We're not talking about, only corporations. We're talking about wealthy people who make over $400,000 a year. We're talking about uh, uh, capital gains taxes. We're talking about estate taxes. So, this fear that, oh no, we can't tax them or our prices will go up. That's what they want you to think, but that's not the reality. So, and Biden got into office and inflation happened immediately. That is true, but that is not a cause and effect. And by the way, your boy Trump spent like $8 trillion or raised the deficit $8 trillion. So, he might have had something to do with that. Like, inflation doesn't just happen. And by the way, it's also a supply chain issue. People are coming back online when the supply wasn't ready. So demand goes up, supply is down, and, suddenly prices go up because now things opened up again. People were back using things. So it's not just about Biden. And again, you are swallowing those talking points. And I'm going to move on from your trolling now, or your talk. I won't say trolling, your good faith conversation. I'll assume it's that. Just a couple more things. And by the way, here is what I was talking about. The Trump tax cut happened in 2017. You want to talk about deficits? That red bar right there, that's Trump and what he did to the deficit. So your attitude towards this is extremely flawed, my friend, and it's kind of embarrassing. And here are some real facts. And then I guess this segues me nicely into a clip. Psaki, who she pulled out some charts at the at her presser this week, and I don't know if I have this actually, but anyway, Psaki pulled out some charts at her presser, her White House press meeting, and she showed something similar, which was that Biden is not the one to blame when you're talking about these deficits, that Trump increased the debt $7.8 trillion. And actually Biden's plan is paid for, by taxing corporations and the rich. And I actually don't even like using the term paid for, because it actually sounds like, they have a right to it and that it's not a decision we're making between the two things. Biden, again, points out that tax cuts for the wealthy under Trump increased the national debt $1.9 trillion, and his will not. And I know the Carloses of the world aren't going to believe that, but this is paid for by taxing the wealthy and corporations, which is why they prefer the green old deal rather than the green new deal. And so by arguing against this, you are doing the bidding of the wealthy. And even some rich people are saying, tax us, build back better. Inequality is out of control. Tax us. And so for rich people to paying effective tax rates of like under 10%, some at zero, corporations at zero, and you're sitting there going, we can't tax them. Like, come on, it's just completely not serious. Even Kirsten Sinema used to say, asking big corporations and the rich to pay their fair share is common sense, not class warfare. This is Kirsten Sinema. This is your hero right here, who you were just defending. She deleted this tweet now because she has been bought and paid for. And as the New York Times says, she is raising money from business groups that oppose these things, even as she's fighting it. And as we said, if the Biden budget is $3.5 trillion, our military budget is $7.7 trillion. The Biden budget is not $3.5 trillion. It's $350 billion a year over 10 years. So terminology is important. How we frame these things is important. If you're saying that our military budget is $770 billion a year, which it is, then you should be saying Biden's budget is $350 billion a year, not 3.5 trillion. And here's that chart again. On the right side, you can see the Pentagon budget, which is just our overinflated military budget, $780 billion a year, which we never audit, is actually twice this reconciliation bill, which we'd be getting paid leave, universal pre-K, HBCU funding, climate funding, all kinds of things, help for lifting poor kids out of poverty, So it's about priorities. And again, I don't like the framing of paid for. It's really a question of there's the money. Where would you rather see the money go? Would you rather see it go to corporations and the wealthy? Or would you rather see it pay for programs that actually help people? Programs that the rest of the world has. We're the only country without paid leave. We're the only country, developed country, without universal pre-K, without universal health care. Like, are we a country that cares about each other, or are we the country that cares about each other the least? And I think I know where Carlos stands on that. I think he just doesn't think that this country should be about people caring about each other. I disagree. I think we should care about each other in this country. And it's not free. I know it's not free and nothing's free. We pay for it. But if I'm going to pay into something, I want to make sure that the people of this country are getting something out. And so that to me is really important. And that's what we're doing. Steven, our buddy Steven, says if Republicans are demanding Democrats raise debt ceiling, aren't they also ordering Democrats to raise $30 trillion in taxes on Wall Street, corporations, and the wealthy via reconciliation? Yeah, I mean, the debt ceiling thing is another thing where, over the course of the Trump presidency, they blew an $8 trillion hole in the deficit. They voted for that. And now raising the debt ceiling is so that we can pay for what they already spent. And they don't want to do that. So that's a scam. That's a scam. Carlos says, why is 400,000 the cutoff for the rich? Why not 300,000, 200,000? Okay. You want to lower it? I'm okay with that. Now you're talking, that's a progressive point right there. Sure. I think the reason is, 400,000 to me is a lot of money, in places like New York City or Miami or the really expensive places. It doesn't go as far. It's still a lot of money. So, I don't know why they drew the line there. I'm sure there was a reason. Could you draw it lower? Sure. So Carlos, looks like Carlos is coming around. Glad to see it. Let's see. Anything else we have? Oh, this was Governor Lee asked about the hypocrisy of supporting a $500 million subsidy to build electric cars in Memphis. I still laugh every time I say it because it's so hypocritical that they're so happy about this while they're calling it socialism, what Biden's trying to do. So Sam Stockard of the Tennessee Lookout, he asked him about this because Ford is like, yeah, we're happy about the Green New Deal at the press conference. And so Governor Lee, do you support it?
Governor, the Fords embraced the new Green Deal quite a bit the other day at the announcement. Do you support the new Green Deal?
Do you support the Green New
think
Deal?
What I support is being good stewards of resources.
What I support is being good stewards of resources of the environment. So his way of dealing with this hypocrisy question about the environment, because Republicans, they don't want to acknowledge climate change is real. They don't want to say they support a move to clean energy because they're owned by big oil and the Koch brothers, who have a huge presence here in Tennessee and have a lot to say about what goes on in our legislature. They say, oh, I support being good stewards of the environment. So they try to separate caring about the environment from climate change, which is quite the balancing act.
Sources of the environment. That's why our Department of Environment Conservation is working closely with Ford. There's a couple of ways to be good stewards. One is to regulate, or one is to innovate. Ford has chosen to innovate,
so regulate or innovate. Ford has chosen to innovate. That sounds good. I mean, I know they sat in Lee's office and were like, hey, this will sound good. Let's say this. But it's not about just regulating or innovating because, what Biden's doing at the federal level to invest in electric car infrastructures and charging stations and, our clean energy future is not just about regulation. It's also about innovation. And our country over time has funded a lot of innovation, has participated in the development of GPS and smartphones and touchscreens and all this stuff. because our government is willing to invest and quote unquote lose money because we're not a business. And then that helps prop up those companies like Apple that do these things that may not have been willing to make that initial investment. Otherwise, it's kind of like with the vaccines. Like our government got behind that and was like, yeah, we want you to take that risk and we'll help, ease some of the burden. And that's how things get done. So, and oil and gas, I mean, trillions in oil and gas subsidies that we've been propping up that industry with over time. So our government does help with these things, and our state government does too. And it's not socialism when they like it. It's only socialism when they don't like it, when it's something that politically doesn't benefit them. So again, I'm not saying these are bad things. I'm not saying it's bad that Ford's coming here. What I am saying is it's wildly hypocritical for them to suddenly be in favor of electric car plants and government subsidies for electric cars, while at the federal level calling it the end of the world socialism. Wildly hypocritical. And this regulate versus innovate thing is just a way for him to try to explain it away, because at the end of the day, they know they're going to probably get one or two questions about this, but if they just have some fancy phrasing, he'll be able to survive and get away with it. And so, we're trying to be here to not let him get away with it.
That's why we're partnering with them in electric vehicles and battery manufacturing, and so we're very pleased that they've made that decision to be here.
He said nothing. It's really important to understand that he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. Steven says Ford didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'll start building electric cars. The government made building electric cars highly profitable. Exactly. And we did the same with oil and gas back in the day. If we believed what progressives have said in the past, the world would be out of oil by now. I don't even know what that means, Carlos. It's just silly. It's just silly. Progressives have been saying we need to get to a carbon neutral place and we need to be energy independent. It's actually a national security issue for us to not rely on the rest of the world for our energy. So, I mean, Carlos, you're just saying stuff, man. You're not really landing any blows here. I got to tell you. He's always like that, says nothing, supports everything, kind of a little maybe, right? Governor Lee is always like that. That's exactly right. That's what he does all the time. It's pretty amazing. Couple more clips. This is Billie Eilish I'm a believer that celebrities can actually help. And this is Billie Eilish in Texas saying she almost canceled her concert when they passed that abortion law, but she realized that the people are the victims, and she's speaking out.
That when they made that shit a law, I almost didn't want to do this show. So, because I wanted to punish this fucking place for allowing that to happen here. But then I remembered that it's you guys that are the fucking victims, and you deserve everything in the world. And we need to tell them to shut the fuck up. Do this. My body, my fucking choice.
My body, my choice. It's powerful. And I think it's really powerful when celebrities speak out like that. She's young, and young people are going to save this country. Young people are going to save this country. So all government programs are taxpayer funded. Yes, absolutely. Including our roads, including our military. It's not socialism when they like the thing. And then Carlos is now talking about Katrina Robinson. She's a crooked capitalist. I mean, you obviously probably are not actually following what happened there. They dropped 44 of the 48 charges and then got her for wire fraud for $3,400. So they're saying she stole $3,400 from her own company. Be that as it may, if that happened, obviously she deserves to be punished for that in some way. But I don't think that the same level of scrutiny has been extended to Republicans, like, for instance, Steve Dickerson, who, settled millions in Medicare fraud that his company was partaking in, and his caucus didn't ask him to step down. FBI raids have happened for Republicans left and right. The difference between Republicans and Democrats when it comes to this stuff is when Democrats are guilty of it, they end up paying a price, and Republicans generally don't. And, that's what I found. But yes, in terms of crookedness, it's not good to be crooked ever, but it's a matter of degrees. And if you actually look into what Katrina Robinson did here, it's a lot of hooey, it looks like. And they dropped 44 of the 48 charges. It's her company. And, what they got her on was like $3,400 of something. If that's true, it's not great, but you better dig into the details before you start equating that with, and you're probably a Trump supporter too, which, like, the guy stole from his own charity. He's the most corrupt president we've ever had. It's not even close. Definitely was in cahoots with Russia. If it's not corrupt, he doesn't want any part of it. So you can't actually be, she's living large. What, you don't like that a black woman is actually making money? Sorry, Carlos, but that happens. So tough shit. Anyway, moving on. And one last thing, talking about Trump, this will be the last thing, and then I'll be done here. We are not out of the woods when it comes to our democracy here. And this was a Trump-supported Arizona governor candidate basically telling us that if she had been governor when the election happened, she wouldn't have certified the election. And the reason this is important is because they've now seen where they fell short in terms of stealing the election last time. And now they're telling us what they're going to do next time. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to get Republicans into these positions to be able to actually steal the election next time. So we're not out of the woods yet. And this is Carrie Lake telling us their plan.
Have you thought through how you would have handled November differently? We all remember the scene when Doug Ducey's sitting there, the phone rings, it's President Trump, he doesn't answer, and he signs results that we now know he certified it under penalty of perjury weren't accurate. How
They were accurate. Let's be very clear about that.
would you have handled that differently?
Well, considering how much already at the time information we had about serious irregularities and problems with the election, I would not have certified it right then. I mean, we actually had Rudy Giuliani in town at that very moment going through pieces of evidence, affidavits that were presented through people that had witnessed things that were wrong or.
Okay, those affidavits were complete horse shit. And Giuliani is a fart machine who was full of hot air the entire time. You've got lawyers being decertified, debarred. You've got, the quote unquote audit, fraudit that turned up nothing. And here's this woman running for governor saying, I would not have certified it. So, I can't stress enough that we are not out of the woods yet. Our democracy is hanging by a thread, and he's coming back. They're coming back. This will happen again. And there's no way to be too alarmed about any of this. So again, subscribe to our email at tnholler.com. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I just kind of wanted to walk through it. Maybe I'll do this again more if you guys are interested. Carlos, these aren't progressive talking points. This is just the truth. And, if you would get off Fox News and Breitbart and follow the Holler, and you'll see actual links to actual facts and information. It could do you some good. And that way you could save yourself some embarrassment next time. Follow all the hollers, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.